Michael Moore once said, democracy is not a spectator sport, it's a participatory event. And if you don't participate, it ceases to be democracy. Hello, my name is Ngina Mualuko, and this is the People's Baraza, a digital storytelling campaign that brings issues like democracy and civic education closer to the everyday citizen. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Fidel Castro, and we will be talking about the issues beyond the ballot. Karibu sana.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Please tell us what it is you do. Yeah.
I'm a law student, I'm a law scholar, and I'm a leadership alchemist in our youth space. And I'm also a political thinker.
Interesting.
I think that describes me.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that you're a political thinker. So one of the issues we have when it comes to elections in Kenya is that we see it as a one-day event, but we know that it's a day that decides the next 5 years of our lives as citizens. So what is the role of the ordinary citizen when they look into the 5 years and not just the one day?
I think while advancing democracy, it's important for different players in these different sectors to demonstrate to the citizens that they are investors in these governments, given that they pay taxes, and the taxes directly return back in terms of how their daily lives move. This I'm talking to in the aspect of healthcare, education, roads, infrastructure, which are daily happenings. So that describes why it should not be a one-time event when it comes to the second Tuesday of August, but it's something that we should be following consistently every day, every week, every month, and the 4 years that prelude an election day.
Yeah. So it sounds more like the election day is the day of hiring, but now the other days are performance reviews. So what should a citizen look at each and every day? What are they allowed to question?
So as a start, when we talk about democracy and what we should do after an election, you see, democracy has given us two forms of government. We have the national government and the county government. If you look at Kenya as a country, majority of the citizens have focused on the national government. We have given less priority to county governments. And I say this because we are a nation, most of the youth, we are 75% of the population in Kenya. And about 37 to 40% will engage in the elections. But our focus is entirely on national government. We are not going down and making politics local as it is, and it should be, to the extent that we look at whatever manifestos were sold to us, the implementation process that they are having. There is something that is called their first 100 days, the short-term and mid-term and long-term goals. Long-term meaning that it will span over a period of 5 years, which is the election cycle. And then we have the short-terms, which takes roughly 1 or 2 years. Mid-term, which is 2.5 years there. And then now the latter days of you serving in office during your term. So majority of us don't take keen notice into what these people have said and how the implementation is. That is why someone might sell to you a manifesto that he or she, or the post he or she is having, might not be able to deliver, but you buy it, given that it is sellable to you. You know, it is easy for you to absorb propaganda rather than looking into facts and looking at the possibility of them achieving, given the roles and whatever is prescribed by the Constitution, that one is supposed to perform in a given function, in a given office, sorry.
Yeah. So what do you propose? You've talked about people believing in propaganda instead of what the facts and all that. So what would you advise, especially the youth, to look at when we're reading these manifestos? Yeah.
So you see, there are different things. Let me start and use let me say, a member of parliament. And we can also focus on the presidency as an institution rather than focusing on the president, so that we look at how we can use these positions during this 5-year period to achieve whatever we want. If you're a member of parliament, we must look at the systems of checks and balances, advancing our interest as a people of a given area. And then how is our representation being done? So in this 5-year period as a citizen, number one, you need to have looked into, one, the manifesto of the person you have elected, because that is what drives us to elect a given person, unless you're someone who is fascinated by how someone looks and not whatever he says, he or she says. So that's one. Let us look at whatever he says he'll do. And number three, let us look at the realities of our situation. Like you see in our country, we are not a manufacturing country. We are largely an agricultural country. So if I am to elect someone in a county, say, let's say like Siaya, I will largely lean on to someone who is going to prioritize agriculture, because I have seen firsthand that when agriculture is prioritized in such a county, we will achieve increased food production, whose ripple effect is increased jobs. And with increased jobs, we have income. And with income, we reduce dependency on government, because by that I mean, we have this notion that the government is supposed to create jobs, but that is not the case. The work of the government is to create a favorable environment through which now jobs can spur. So how are we utilizing whatever we have? Because if you look at counties, Nyanza counties, those, by that I mean counties which are near the lake, we have water bodies. Water bodies spur agriculture. We can talk of irrigation and things like those. So how are we utilizing the free land that we have? So that is the manifesto. And then we need to have monitoring, consistent monitoring of whatever we have. You see, if you as the host, let's say you are elected, if you tell me that by this given period you'll have brought a chair, look at the realities of the day. Are you able to achieve it? Number two, if you have not achieved it, what steps have you taken to ensure that you reach a certain area? If I'm supposed to do agriculture or maintain agriculture in these counties, as an example, not to say that every other county will perform in agriculture. We are supposed to look at, if you came into office promising that there'll be agriculture, what policies are you passing in terms of fertilizers or agricultural inputs? How is the county at that level prioritizing the goods you produce? Are they being moved, or are they being sold here, or the county is also giving a platform through which they can be sold to different counties? And is it going further ahead to perform in terms of exports? So those are the things we are supposed to look at in terms of production and agriculture as an example of how governments are supposed to work. So if we consistently do what I call monitoring, and then we do evaluation. If you had short-term goals that you are supposed to achieve, how many have you achieved? How many cannot happen given scenarios? Because I might have the idea of passing, and you are a country that is governed through the constitution. I might have an idea as an elected governor, but I may not be able to achieve it because it must pass maybe through the county assemblies. So are we considering those factors also?
Yeah.
And if you're considering those factors, is something that I promised achievable, but does it face hindrances from, let's say, the bill being passed in the county assemblies or the national assemblies? So there are different levels through which we can look into the ideas and implementation. Our big problem as Kenyans is we have focused too much on politics, but we are not looking into the reason as to why we elect leaders. Leaders are elected to ensure that they implement policies that are supposed to better us, not to politic. But you see in Kenya, we have embraced too much politics. So it is sweeter to embrace something that helps you in a short span, but something that is to help you on long term, majorly they come with pain. By pain, I mean that it is an investment that you might not see the benefits today, but it's something that eventually you are going to enjoy fruits in the latter days of your living. Let's say if it's a term.
Okay, that's beautiful. So you've mentioned manifestos and the realities on the ground. But we still are facing the challenge of where in as much as a youth, especially young people, in as much as they vote, they still feel like their voices are not being heard. So what are some of the channels that this group of people can direct their concerns and actually monitor, and to even have the parliamentarians or the people that we're voting into office be able to evaluate and say, this is what happened, and to have that level of accountability two-way? So what are some of the channels that can be used?
You know, before even we reach the channels that are being used, we as the youth, during the electioneering period, we are used as mobilizers and hecklers. We do not go to the extent through which that me and you can sit at party organizations and decide that if we are going to help the party garner some given point of seats, apart from just being nominated to represent the marginalized group, which consists of the youth, women, and people with disabilities, we are supposed to be nominated in different areas so that we may be able to push policies that will help us. So for us to achieve this, number one, we must be part and parcel of the policies or the ideas that form manifestos for these parties. And we must ensure that in every manifesto that we form, we ensure that we include ourselves in it. Because if we do not do this, you see, politicians are also crafty. If they notice a gap that you are not trying to use, they will exploit to the extent that you will not be considered. Why am I saying this? Look at majority of the parties that we have. Their youth leaders are over and above the age of 35. Look at, no, you see, on a reality perspective, look at ODM. I am not sure of the age of the one that is in Jubiding Ngujiri, but he seems young unless I confirm the age. But look at these other parties. There is a new party called NEDP. Look at John Ababu. He is above the age of 35. So these are the things you are supposed to constantly check. How will these people implement the ideas that we have as young people? You know, there's an adage that goes that a 19th century problem, a 21st century problem cannot be solved by a 19th century solution. Meaning, the problem me and you go through during this our age, it is something that most of these old age people don't comprehend. But that does not totally mean that we should exclude them from thinking. We are supposed to collaborate, but it is through us that we share our ideas in a given way that it sells out. Like, we are going to elections now. If the youth are not incorporated in formulating the ideas and manifestos of this party, believe you me that be so as it may, these people are not going to win the election, because a majority of the parties that are not going to include the youth are not going to win the election. Why am I saying this? How are you reaching this youth? First of all, to identify the problems they are. The youth majority don't want to come to where you are. They want to engage on social media. Someone wants to contribute to a conversation in Kirinyaga but wants to be seated at his home in Nairobi. Or the same can happen with one person in Siaya and wanting to contribute to a conversation in Mombasa, sharing these ideas. So how are we navigating through this plethora of issues to ensure that if the youth want to be helped, how do we reach that table? That's what I was telling you. There are counties that are good into tourism, like Masai Mara. How do we incorporate them? Incorporation can only happen if the youth in that area are given a priority into the vehicles that form this, into the vehicles that eventually capture power. Through that I mean political parties. So number one, we occupy spaces at political parties and ensure that we are at good positions that we can implement policies. By that I mean, if we are doing nominations, we ensure that our voices must be heard. How do we veto the actions of a political party? By that, this means that when we are forming policies, we ensure that it guarantees that without the youth being included, nothing can happen in the party. And by this, I don't mean to make it so authoritative that without the youth, nothing can happen. But I'm saying we are included in such a manner that there is no point through which we'll be excluded. You look at the nominations that we have in parliament. Not majority of them are youth in people in the marginalized groups. You will find that it is either someone who is old or they look at someone who is with disability that has been able to contribute, but the youth are totally excluded. And then you'll find you are a youth who is prominent and has ideas, but they do not give you the opportunity to reach those tables. With a position at National Assembly, you might be able to pass bills that will result into employment opportunities. So the intention of making changes ensure that we capture seats through which our voices can be heard. That's why in Kenya we have what we call representation. All of us can't be in parliament, but if we put pressure and pressure exacted into the right direction, we are able to push Ngina to a nominated seat and ensure that we can channel ideas through her and they are taken to parliament, debated and passed as bills that help the youth.
Okay, you've brought up something interesting, that people who even hold these youth seats are way beyond the age of 35. So do you think it's a gatekeeper's issue or an issue where the youth are not coming out to get into these positions, or both?
We have political patronage, and number two, as the youth, we have not taken time to analyze these political parties to the extent that we know how to position ourselves for the vantage seats. Majorly, you see these people who are in these political parties, these are youths who have served here. They have served so that they also lead. There's something that we say, you must agree to be led before you lead. But you know, majority of us just want to pop into these parties and then you are awarded. This majority of political seats are rewarded. You can also look at this in a view of how people are appointed to cabinet secretary positions and so on and so forth. It is a rewarding of people who have helped you come to power. So if we at all don't participate in this process, it generally means that at the tail end of appointment and seat acquisition, we'll be excluded because we are not part of the entire process. Generally, you reap where you sow. If you do not sow seeds at the political party level, then you are totally excluded from achieving your goals of being a leader in different posts.
Okay. And for the viewer at home who might not understand what political patronage is, could you please break that down?
Political patronage is where, let me explain it in this instance. We have a sect of leaders, and I'll start with KANU. KANU was there during Jomo Kenyatta's time. It flowed down to Moi, and then we have what we call KANU orphans. They have led this country all through. Talk of Mwai Kibaki. Those are people who have been in KANU. Talk of Uhuru Kenyatta. Talk of the current president. And we still have the same crop of leaders intentionally vying with the view of bringing change that they have not been able to bring over decades in leadership. So political patronage is a system whereby, as an example, Gen Zs go to protest, but because we claim that we are leaderless, they take up their own people in the pretense of serving us to advance their interest. It might seem very normal to you, but you see these politicians, they look at the minute, they measure on the minor things that you people exclude yourself on. And then now they use that to ensure that they galvanize you. And political patronage also manifests itself in the extent of, you know, these people who have been in politics for a long time, they have what we call monetary muscles, which the youth lack. So with monetary muscles means when you join these political parties, if there's nothing special that you're bringing to this table, you'll be forced to align to whatever they want. So generally, that's my brief explanation of what it is, but it is where the old guard hold these important leadership posts, and we as the youth are used as flower girls to ensure that we advance their interests.
Yeah, interesting. So beyond the ballot, we're still talking about accountability and how to bring it, right? We can take a very good example of the 2024 finance bill protests. That was a way of the youth wanting accountability to be taken. right? But what are some of the other ways that we can ensure that accountability is being taken by our leaders, the leaders who have been put in these positions? And beyond that, what are some of the measures that can be introduced so that leaders realize that this is not just a position so that they can get a salary, it is a position of service, and they have to be accountable of the kind of things that they do say and that they have promised?
By accountability, I'll start by, before June 2024, majority of us had not discovered our civic duty with what democracy had given us. So our achievement majorly during the protest was putting forward the civic duty, and by that I mean public participation. I believe 95% of the youth before June 2024 and a majority of the people who we have before did not know what the finance bill is.
Definitely.
It is not that it must be passed every financial year, but the political class takes advantage of it to ensure that they budget well. And by budgeting well, I mean that they engage in what we call budgeted corruption, because there is usually overusage of money in these government offices. So are we intentionally engaging in public participation to ensure that when a bill is being passed, it is passed not to benefit the leader, but to benefit the larger electorate, which is the citizens who have taken you there? So there's one, public participation. Number two, are we keeping tabs with whatever the leaders promised? What is their track record on a yearly basis? The leaders say that they will improve schools. At what percentage are they achieving this thing, or is it stagnant? Is there allocation? If the allocation is there, has it been used prudently? I think if you look at Public Accounts Committee, you saw from Homa Bay County there was a spending of up to 500,000 in making a pit latrine toilet, something that is completely outrageous. There is too much of a budgeting into a project that should cost less, meaning that the citizens get less than what they deserve. So are we raising these concerns? Are we able to say that we believe that the allocation that has been done here is far much beyond? So are we also proposing reforms that will ensure that we are also being served, to ensure that we curb the question on a negative aspect that you asked?
Interesting. There's this belief, I don't know if it's in Kenya only, that leaders are untouchable.
To some extent they are.
Yes, well, but you see, it's still a position that they have been given by the people, right? So in the event that we have done the monitoring and evaluation, and this person has clearly not done A, B, C, D, E, what can the ordinary citizen bank on to realize that they actually have the right to take this person to like a position of accountability, which is even higher? You understand? Talking about impeachment, what are some of the things that ordinary citizens need to know about that?
So first, there are relevant offices that look into the conducts of leaders. That is number one, in terms of are they adhering to Chapter 6 of the Constitution, which is leadership and integrity? Are they following to the latter, whatever is stipulated there? And then we also have, we as citizens, do we go an extra mile? Are we looking for information from the Auditor General? How has the funds that we have contributed through the taxes being used? Because as we started this podcast, I was telling you that we as the citizens, we are investors. We pay taxes. By paying bus fare, you are paying taxes. By buying a matchbox, you are paying taxes. By earning your salary, there's a deduction that is being cut from your salary. So are we going further step to check that as an investor, I put in some money to this government, is it being used for the right purpose? And if it is not being used for the right purpose, having checked that, what are you doing in place to ensure that the leaders are brought to account? Like for our members of parliament, are we instituting recalls? Because by June 2024, there are members of parliament who had not even talked in terms of even appearing in parliament. What have the citizens done? We also have areas where members of parliament have served for more than 3 terms, but there is no tangible thing that you can account for that during this time as member of parliament, there is something that they did. And on the flip side of it, there are young members of parliament who have come into office, and within less than 2 terms, we are seeing revamped public schools that look like private schools. And by that I mean that majority of our public schools are pathetic in nature, and the private on outer look are stellar. So if a member of parliament can come and through a percentage of the constituency development fund, they're able to change these public schools, why they are not here? Because I believe that the allocations of these funds, like let's say CDF, are given by considering, one, the number of people that we have into these spaces. So are we able to hold our leaders to account to that extent? Because we are not a banana republic. We are a country governed by the rule of law, and it states that you must follow it in order to, if you have evidence that something is not being done well, are you pushing it forward to the relevant offices? If not that, we have social media tools. If you are not being listened to, this is now where we pile pressure, because we have as a country, we are a high consumer of social media content. So are we pushing it to the extent that we are raising awareness to the country that we have an elected leader who is not performing? I'll give you an example of, let me choose a different country. I've focused on Siaya too much. We have a country like Homa Bay. There's a time the governor was gallivanting the country. Look at the projects that have been done there. Largely, every project that you can see or is visible to the county is being done by the national government. So you ask yourself, what is the money that you are contributing that goes to the county in terms of revenue? What is it doing? How are we implementing healthcare at the place? Because you can't, at a situation you see an expose by the fourth estate, by this I mean the media, saying that they have allocated money to our hospital that does not work. So are we following these steps to ensure that if there is this expose, we push it forward to the extent that they are called to answer those questions? And if they are found guilty, we kickstart the impeachment process. Because if you are being represented, you might not do the impeachment yourself, but you can take it maybe to your member of county assembly or your member of parliament to their offices. So in terms of being untouchable, that is where we now fail as a country, because it is very difficult to access these leaders.
Yeah.
You might have a very good idea, but you are curtailed in such a manner that when you take these things to their offices, the documents just absorb dust in the wardrobes. So how are we moving past this to ensuring that we do not also massage our leaders too much to them thinking that they own whatever jobs we have given them? Because we are the employers. That's why I call citizens investors, because we give tax to ensure that it works to our benefit. So the profit of our tax is good roads, healthcare, education, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. You've mentioned social media, and it's been an amazing tool, especially the last couple of years. We've seen very many young people engage in what is actually going on ground, right? And beyond that, we've also seen incredible community barazas like in Dandora. How do you think these platforms have helped people realize that they do have power? And do you think it's only going to go, grow for the better? Or, yeah, what?
I credit social media for opening up the eyes of Kenyans, and majorly social media to the extent that it is coupled with AI, because, you know, at this age and era, we are a group that we have a short span of, let's say, reading and looking into things. But with AI, it's able to do analysis of documents for you and give you the relevant content that you want in terms of summary. So as the citizens, how are we using this to our benefit? Because you see also the finance bill, the social media, it is good that it brought back civic participation, and it demonstrated the need for adhering to democracy. But you also see that social media is used in a bad way in terms of spreading propaganda. So we as the youth and as citizens, largely, are we focusing on using these social media tools to advance the greater good? Because we might focus on what is fashionable to us, like saying, like if propaganda is passed to you, like the finance bill, there are things like taxes on bread. Like as late as this last finance bill, I heard of taxes being passed on, during June 2024, we had the PADS one, and also it is a discussion that was brought here.
Yeah.
But if you read that finance bill, it was not there. So are we able to decipher the wrongs or the lies in a document or a policy that is being passed? But generally, social media will carry or spearhead part of civic duty, because it might not be used by a larger percentage, because only 37% of Kenyans use social media. But you note that with the 37%, it trickles down to those people who cannot access it, who don't know how to use it, or their age, during their age, and now the advancement in age where someone is old and cannot use the digital tools that we have, they are able to learn from us, because that is how the awareness on finance bill was.
Yeah.
So you find that there is someone who had advanced in age and did not know finance bill. But right now he can, when it is announced or shared, he has the time to go and sit down and look at whatever is stipulated there, what amendments they have to laws, and how they intend to raise tax revenue.
Interesting. Propaganda and reality. Social media is quick, and we've seen that propaganda spreads more. Scandals trend in Kenya, especially on platforms like X. So what are some of the things that an ordinary citizen can do just by themselves to ensure that they're not feeding into it, or they're not feeding into more misinformation, or even spreading it? Yeah.
I think before we post on our social medias, because you see, majority of us have large followings, before you post on your social media, let's do counter-checking of information, and then let us ensure that we post what is relevant, not just for views, but for the general good of the country, because we have a country to keep. I usually say this: June 24th helped us achieve civic education, helped us realize whatever our civic duty is and the democracy we have had for the past 16 years. That is because we are 16 years after the inception of the 2010 Constitution. But if we do not keep or take good care of whatever we have achieved, which has been brought by people who fought for democracy and multi-party, we will run into states like Libya, South Sudan, and it is better to have a failed state than to have a state run in anarchy. And by failed, I don't mean that we adapt to where our leaders do not perform. It is good to engage them to the extent that they're able to perform to you, and in such a way that they know if we do not perform for our citizens, our youth will not, or we will not be elected. Not necessarily the youth, but everybody in the citizenry bracket. So on this part, I'd largely say that let us focus on disseminating what is good and educating Kenyans. If you are able to learn, or you are in possession of a document, it is good to share whatever is right and avoid propaganda, because we might social media can fuel anarchy. And before here, I was talking to a friend, I was telling him, you see, it's good to protest, but we must also look into these laws before we go to protest. There are some things that if we do, we are the ones who face repercussions. Like when you are going to protest and you tell your followers through social media that they should go to places like Parliament or State House. It is protected. You'll be shot because you are an intruder. Who knows if you are carrying a bomb in your body, or who knows if your intentions is to cause harm in that area. You might not also be shot, but you might be arrested, which means that you will have wasted a good chunk of your time, which you would have used productively to help yourself. So let us also use social media to ensure that we educate ourselves. So if you are protesting or doing any other thing, we do it through what is prescribed by the law.
Elections are almost here for us. It's in 2027. And yes, we will see the campaigns, we will see the debates, and we'll have that one day that we will all go to vote. What is something you can tell the ordinary citizen, especially the youth, to look at now beyond the day of election?
We are going to elect leaders, and as you had said, propaganda spreads so fast to the extent that it blindfolds us into seeing the reality of things. And by that I mean that the allegations that spread here and there. What I'd like to say is that allegations in this sense are not totally conclusive. But by that I don't mean that the immediate proof of the allegations means it's false. So if we are buying into the ideas that these people are selling, let us internalize them. Let us contextualize whatever they are saying with the reality of the day. Let us also problematize them to see if whatever me as Fidel is telling you, is it workable? Are we able to achieve giving everyone a shoe during the current economic situation? And is it provided by the law that the government can do that to you? Let us not promise you heaven on earth and you buy it, rather than sticking to whatever is achievable in reality. We most of the time elect leaders who, in my own words, I can say are crooks, because they do not perform whatever we want, simply because we don't choose people who are going to work. We choose people on the depth of their pockets, and it is something that has largely affected our country. We are in a handout society whereby if Ngina is able to give you 200, you will elect her. But if Fidel comes with 500, he now becomes a darling of the people. If we move away from such a political environment, we are able to now elect what we call leaders and not dealers in this state.
Okay, and just before we conclude, this is a very light segment. Do you think power corrupts or it exposes, and why?
I think on my end, I'd say both. If you're someone who does not have self-discipline and is not intentional in the reason as to why you join leadership, then it corrupts. But if you're someone who is a fox hiding under sheep's skin, it exposes you once you have power. We have had leaders who have come out as darlings of the people, but when they get power, they totally disassociate with the citizens. But we have those who are good. They come into power, and then you'll hear people who are near there saying that given the amount of connections and money that they have achieved in these spaces, it has completely changed their behavior. So I believe both of them are relevant. It depends on the situation that happens to the person you elect.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Fidel. Fidel has put it very well, that we do have a civic right and responsibility on the day of voting, but we also have a civic responsibility to keep our leaders accountable beyond the ballot. So this is what I'd say. Do your research. Be a realist and not an idealist. Do not spread propaganda. Do not spread misinformation or disinformation. Change necessity, and you can only do it when you have your facts right. That is all we have for you today. This is the People's Baraza. My name is Ngina Mualuko.